Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by ICOM and the IC9100. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 86, February 20th, 2013, a tribute to Wes Schum. Good evening, everybody, from cold, Pleasant Hope, Missouri. This is K9EID, and it's Ham Nation time. And I got to tell you, it's cold. And Gordo, it's not cold where you are, WB60NOA. How you doing, Gordo? You okay? Warm, of course.
We're just great. And get my call sign correct, because Pete the Greek at 12 VDC, the call sign getter says that my original call over 50 years ago was WV6TWJ. He's got a service that doesn't cost much, and Pete the Greek can get back your old call sign. Back to you, Bob.
All right. Well, I've had this call. Well, my original one was KN9EID, and I still use it once in a while. Oh, a novice at heart. Hey, I got something behind me that's new. I brought my Harvey Wells up from Illinois, and the other Harvey Wells. So we're going to get that thing going this week and be playing around with that in the 20A. And Gordo, you know, we get a lot of emails, all of us, and one of the things that a lot of guys are saying is like, boy, all this stuff is so expensive. But I was poking around on eBay the other day, and there was a Yaesu 890 for $117. It worked good, it looked good, and there was a Kenwood TS430 for $173, and it all works perfect. That's a buy, right?
That is a good deal. And many times on eBay, you'll get some great deals like that. Wow, HF for $125. What a deal, Bob.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. So you guys want to poke around a little bit. There's all kinds of things up on the net, not just eBay. QRZ.com, they got a shop thing, and QTH has got a shopping plan. You guys want to go and look at that. It's really great. And get something on the air. That's the main thing, is get on the air and put up some antennas. And no, you can do this simple. We've done it here before, so make that all happen. Well, we have a really special show tonight, everybody. It's almost a historic show, because Gordo's got something very, very special. So we're going to switch back to Costa Mesa, and Gordo's going to get you all tuned in to see the brand new Kenwood. Gordo, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Bob. And your friend and ours, Leo, KJ6HI, was on the horn last Friday going, get over here immediately. You only got about an hour to check this new Kenwood TS990 out. And get a hold of Don Arnold and bring him over. Well, Donnie's like in Chattanooga, but he happened to be up at the Ham Stores, HRO, putting together a deal, making them exclusive for AbMap. I get a hold of Don, and between the three of us, he comes on down. Now, he has no camera gear other than just a little point and shoot, but Don Arnold and Leo and GW give the TS990 a whirl. But we only had an hour, no instruction book, and here's some of the fun that we had. So, Brian, if you'll go ahead and roll the video. That's Don and Leo, and they're standing tall, and we're all set to try out their Ham Stations 990.
And this is one of the first brand new TS990s, serial number, well, probably in the low ones or twos, weighs in at 54 pounds. Let's jump inside and see what's happening on this great radio.
Well, you won't find it on eBay.
All right, let's go ahead and turn it on. Hold for 2 seconds. Says hello. twin displays. We're on 7250. Come down here to the main band, turn up the volume. W6AUX, WB6NOA. How do we sound, Jason?
Oh, you sound really good, Gordo. Outstanding, in fact.
All right, we're on the Kenwood new TS990. Over.
That's outstanding, Gordo. That's very clear and very crisp. You've got excellent audio.
Roger that. Back in a minute. WB6NOA.
Well, most captivating, of course, is the thin film transistor 7-inch touch screen with a 3.5-inch sub screen. And that 3.5 we use for looking at the audio waveforms. And the screens are all configurable. And Bob, Leo even figured out how to change all the different colors. A vector scope for PSK, an XY scope for RTTY, waterfall, band scope, save screens on a thumb drive, 5 roofing filters, 3 DSP, notch filters, everything in this $8,000, well, a little bit under $8,000 transceiver from Kenwood. Now, when we go over to the digital modes, wow, you can really hear the receiver tighten up. And notice all I have to do is push and bingo, the receiver instantly comes over to the frequency that I'm able to see activity on the touch screen. Now, here we are in the digital mode down on the CW portion of the band, and we can watch both scopes. That's the audio scope that you see there on the top, and they got sort of a retro dial for the CW side, which he really enjoys. We can adjust all the band pass filters, and you can see them right there on the small scope up at the very top. And it's got 4 antenna ports. Even has a port for an RCA plug to take in an outside beverage antenna. And it's got a COM port and the normal 8 or 9 pin, I forget how many, but the multi-pin for adding the amplifiers and other things that you may have now. And what we like were all the menus. Now, the menus were fully adjustable, and if you didn't like what came up, all you had to do was to adjust it and memorize it in one of the sub-menus, and then attach it to a band, and that way, when you change bands, almost always everything comes up at once. Now, add a keyboard by simply plugging it in, and you're ready to go up on 14070 and try a little bit of PSK 31 or 64. And the decoder is built right in. It's like having a computer built right into the radio. Now, again, we're without an instruction manual, so Don and I are just sort of plugging away, and now you can see the waveform, the vector scope for the PSK, and you can see the waterfall. And as we tune around here, we can get right on the nose, and then you look at the screen, and you'll be able to see that it's reading out faithfully everything that we have tuned in with PSK 31. Now, you want RTTY up about 10 kilohertz, no problem at all. We can go to RTTY, and it's got the XY device there. There we go. We got a signal tuned in. Again, this is the sub-scope, not the real big one, but the sub-display, and it allows you to, like having a alternate computer hooked up to the radio, the computer is built in. And by the way, the audio scope was quite helpful when tuning in many of the digital modes, and look at all the stuff come through right there on the screen. 2 separate receivers. The sub receiver is actually a Kenwood TS 590 built right into this radio, that receiver, and you can receive on different bands. Unlike my 950, we have individual bands for simultaneous reception, and of course, if you have stereo headphones, you can go ahead and listen to one band on one side and one on the other. But look at that waterfall display. Also a jack for an external S-meter. If you didn't want an electronic one, you can add your own giant S-meter. Power output, 200 watts, has a built-in power supply. And look at this, I'm actually able to capture a message and put it onto a thumb drive. And again, here you see the capability of those filters. The tuner is built in. It's got a clock, a voice recorder. Power supply is built right in. There again is the waveform and the waterfall. Wow, look at that. And everything is configurable as to how much or how little space you want that thin film transistor screen to hold. And again, find a signal you want. You just tap it with your finger and bingo, the radio instantly tunes to that. Just by touching the screen on the display or the waterfall, and bingo, it pops right over there. 3 DSPs in the main IF, 6 roofing filters. No, make that 5 roofing filters. And that was a external display that lets you see everything big time. The RX and TX have full equalization. It's got left and right headset, 120 channels of memory, the common 8-pin microphone. This is the radio to look for.
For those of you into contesting, this is the rig. Every bell and whistle you want, plus almost everything is built right in when it comes to digital. Kenwood TS 990, 54 pounds of radio.
Yahoo, 54 pounds. So Donnie only had about an hour to whack these quick photos, but boy, he did a good job with a little point and shoot camera. And I hope everyone out there gets a chance to log on and see this over again on YouTube. And if you have questions, you can contact on at w6gps@yahoo.com. And next week, we're going to show you all the excitement that happened up at the Ham Radio Outlet Sunnyvale store, where some of our California Rescue Aries members were there to actually watch Phil Parton start operating the equipment and play all the games with this new Kenwood TS 990. Hey, Bob, Leo did a great job. Leo KJ6HI of Kenwood did a fabulous job giving us the first shot to play with a new Kenwood 990. Bob?
Yeah, Leo's a good guy. It's a wonder you got him off of 6 meters, though.
That was the first band he wanted to tune in. Unfortunately, the band was not open, but boy, what a receiver.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, thanks for doing that. We really appreciate that, and look forward to getting more information about the big 990 when it becomes really available. Well, thanks, Gordo. Well, we have the second half of our special program tonight. I am extremely excited about this, and I want to bring in my other 2 guests. These guys are the Central Electronics gurus, and you met George Meyer a few weeks ago, but we're going to bring Nick Tusa on, and Nick is a great friend of Wes, and he'll tell you the whole history. We got some nice slides and stuff too. Nick, how are you doing? Everything okay there?
Oh, we're doing great, and it's wonderful to be here tonight, finally.
Well, I know you've been on the road, and that's okay. We all get busy on the road. How well do I know that? Well, that's super. Tell us a little bit about how you met Wes and some of your happenings with Wes, how you got together and got the parts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, actually, it started quite a long time ago. I got interested, or at least I discovered Central Electronics when I was in high school. And our high school radio club back then in the 60s, they had bunches of these, had the priest that was the moderator for our club. I had a little Central Electronics 10A and a 75A1 and a Model A slicer. And I had never seen one before. Didn't even know about the phasing principle. And since it didn't work, we had to figure out how to make it work. And a whole group of us did. And that kind of started my infatuation with phasing and the Central Electronic product line. And even back then, not knowing that Zenith had deactivated Central, I had sent them a note because we needed coils for our 10A. we only had a coil set for 80 and 40 meters, and the guys wanted to get on 20, so I sent a letter out there, and lo and behold, I get a note back from, would you believe, Carl Hassel, who was the co-founder of Zenith, and he sent the coil information and also some information about Wes Schum. And that's really how I kind of at least knew that he existed and what he was doing. And later in college and then after, I got very interested in developing an amplifier of my own using the broadband couplers. And that's kind of what started my relationship with Wes, and it turned into a, really, he turned into a 35, almost 40-year mentor. And you couldn't have a better mentor than Wes Schum if you're interested in electronics. He's a wonderful guy, and when I had met him, of course, it was well after Central. He was working in his basement like he started in Central Electronics. Well, he was back in the basement again in his house in Chicago on McClellan Avenue, and building high voltage test sets for AT&T and Bell Labs. And so after I met him and we started a good friendship, I would come up to his house about 3 to 4 times a year, and I'd spend 5 days or a week up there. And I was in the Wes Schum Apprentice program, where I would help him wire and test his high voltage test set line. And while we're in the basement with him listening to his big band music, because he loves that, we talked Central Electronics and some of the work that I was trying to do. And it was just a natural thing, and we just got closer and closer. So we'd always kind of try to structure our trips to coincide with a ham fest, because you can't separate Wes Schum from a ham fest. If there's one within 100 miles of Chicago, we had to go to it. And that was kind of the start of a very long and wonderful friendship.
That's how he really got his word out, was going to Hamfest. I remember in the early days. I met him at Dayton in 1959, and he was always at all these Peoria and all these Midwest and so on. He'd be there, and that's how he got single sideband off the ground. Well, let's get into that first group of videos. Slides, and you can narrate some of these and tell us exactly what was going on in these early days with Wes.
Okay.
Here's some of the things.
Well, this is not a product of Wes's. This was a fellow that he knew, a W0 friend of his, that sent him his version of a mobile 10A, and he called it a 5A. And if anyone's familiar with the layout of a 10A, you'll notice that this looks very similar to the 10A, except very compact. And used, of course, the phase shift network and the 6AG7 tube. On the left is the little VFO that this fellow had conjured up for his 5A. And in the trunk, he had a pair of 807s that he used as the final. So getting to have a mobile rig operational back in the early 50s was no easy feat.
Okay, that was cool. Yeah, well, Brian, I want to bring up the Wes W9 DYV slides. We'll go through those about 10 or 15 seconds a piece there. And Nick, run through these. We're going to start through these with the building and all this, and tell the audience how all of this was going down in the early days of Central Electronics.
Okay, well, Wes, Wes has got a funny life, I tell you. He was able to skate through World War II because he was working for a company called, there you go, Covert Dual Signal. He was their chief engineer at the tender age of 20. And
Wow.
he was building a bunch of equipment. Now we're looking at later on, this is Central Electronics. This is Dillard Carr in the final test, where they're actually testing modules that make up the 100V transmitter. And this test equipment, especially the device in the middle, that was all custom done and designed by Central for the 100V product. Yeah, what this allowed you to do, the 3 meters, if we can go back to it for a minute, when you have the 3 meters on the top, one was measured the sideband suppression on lower sideband, middle was the carrier, and the other was for upper sideband. So you could set the sideband generator up and adjust it on this test fixture, just visually. Now this is Wes. Of course, Wes made 100+ conferences where he gave presentations on the attributes of single sideband. And you have to remember, back in the early days of the 50s, single sideband was not exactly welcome with open arms and on the voice segments of the band. Everybody was still operating tons of AM. The sidebanders were crammed up on the high end of 75. They used to operate on 39, 99.5 lower sideband, so they wouldn't spill outside the band. And but I guess because everybody pushed them out. Now this is the little ham station that got me interested in Central Electronics. This is at our high school. You'll notice the little sideband slicer, the Model A to A1. And way in the right-hand corner, you'll see our 10A. And that's what got me interested in Central. There you go. This was, if you go to our website, we have a number of items there. And this is an ode to an onion. This is a guy that wanted to get a 20A in the worst way, and he couldn't get it because they weren't ready yet. And Wes kept pushing him off. And this fellow used to send him poems. And he made this little poem up to try to flush out a 20A out of Wes. And there were a couple of guys that did the same thing. They're quite humorous. This is a picture of Wes at Covert Dual Signal. So this had to be around 1940 or 41. The fellow to his, in the right, is Roy Sherman. Roy was Wes's lifelong friend. They got to be pals when Wes and Roy both got their ham licenses in the 30s. And Roy became the service manager at Central Electronics. And later even, Roy actually lived with the Schum family first in Chicago, and then when they moved to Tennessee, he moved with them. So Roy was a fixture there. Of course, this is my hero, Wes. This is one of the first 100Vs that was getting ready to yield. You can kind of tell that because the little fan uses a nylon blade, and that was only in the first about 100 or 150 sets that were produced, and then that changed. But this was one of the first ones. Now this is his ham shack back in the early 30s, and he used to tell a story that those headphones up there hanging on the clip, the paint had worn off of them, and he would put those headphones on until he figured out what had happened and turn on the power switch on his receiver, and it'd blow him off the table. Apparently, somehow or another, there was a failure in the output transformer. It put high voltage on the headphones, and because the paint had worn off, he was electrocuting himself. But he had to do it 3 times before he figured out what was going on. Now this is Big Shot Wes over at Covert Dual Signal, and the big honcho boss was out of town, and Wes was in charge. He was the actual engineering manager, so he positioned himself at the boss's desk, acting as if he was running the whole operation, and had Roy take this picture, from what I understand. And little did we know that this was going to be Wes a little bit later on at Central Electronics.
That's great. That's great. Those are great pictures. Great memories. I really like the desk. That was kind of cool. That desk was neat.
Oh, yeah, it's quite a desk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a desk
Well,
there. Yeah.
Well, I want to move on to the next set where you guys were down there this summer and had a really great tribute to Wes, and you might want to talk about that just a little bit, and we'll get George in here in a minute. But run through those slides and tell us a little bit about what was happening this summer.
Okay. Well, you know, lots of people. Well, wait, this is my ham shack. That's not supposed to be there. We wanted to do something really special for Wes. You know, Wes had just turned 90, and you know, lots of times there's all kinds of displays of affection and discussions about our ham brothers after they've departed. And I felt like, you know, Wes Schum had made such a tremendous contribution to the radio art, and single-handedly he ran the medicine show in his little 10As and 20As with a medicine, and he sold it all over the United States and got tons of people interested in single sideband. And I felt that we should do something to honor that contribution while he's with us, and so he can enjoy it. And he always likes a good party. So we decided to have an event last year, and this is at his house in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and we set up a display of the Central Electronics product line from a 10B, a 20A, the scope, MM2 scope. There's a 600L, and then, of course, a 100 and 200V. And to the left is a rack mount 10A. This is one that Wes had restored for him, but he claims that this was the first one that he had actually had ready to be sold as a production model. This, of course, is Wes and his bride, Marge, W9 EMP. Eat more possum, as she calls herself. And they're just a charming couple. They've been married for well north of 60 years, and it's a true love story. And one day I'm going to publish on our website how those two met, and the story behind how they got married is really amazing. This, I'm holding what is called the Sideband Susie. And this was an award that Wes got at a ham fest. I've forgotten exactly where it is. It was up in the Northwest. And what it is a gold-plated statue of a very well-endowed young lady, but there's only half of her, since that happened to be the upper sideband. And once again, of course, the 10A. But
wow. That is terrific. Bob's got a cloud over his house right now, so the internet may have failed on him for just a moment. Any last words on this great tribute to a true pioneer? Back to you.
Well, thanks, Gordon. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, we're going to have another one of these tributes to the great pioneer this summer. It's going to be on Field Day, though. And we're going to invite the boat anchor community, that it is time for our boat anchors to get out of the basement, get out of the garage, and get back on the air. And we're inviting you all to drag them out, and let's have a real boat anchor field day. We have 22 manicured acres in Jonesboro, Tennessee. They're nice and got rolling hills and a little pond. And we intend to have a W9 DYV special event station. But more importantly, we'd like to see the guys come out and have a good time, do some tailgating. I don't know if there's been a boat anchor ham fest joined up with field day before, but there's a first for everything, and this is going to be it.
Wow. Well, that sounds great. Well, I think we've got Bob back again. So, Bob, if you want to take back over. And no. All right. Brian, I think we have another special guest that we're going to add into the show. So let me go over to Brian, who is our main man behind the Twit board, and I'll let you bring up our next guest and see what he's got. And if you're drawing a blank, then we're going to go over to Don Wilbanks. So, Brian, I'll leave it over. There we go. Hi, George. How you doing?
Hey, Gordon. Hi, Ham Nation. It's certainly nice to be here.
Well, George, we are honored to have you joining us. And, George, you want to add to this great tribute some of your experiences with the original CE gear. Go ahead.
Yeah, by all means. I unfortunately missed out on the first window of ownership for Central Electronics. I got a novice license somewhere around 1958 or so. But I was fascinated by sideband because I could hear it. And as soon as I figured out how to decode it on my HQ100 or how to demodulate it, it just fascinated me. 10 years later, when I was out of school and had a little money to spend, rather than going back, and by the way, I would hear Central Electronics rigs on the air a lot in the late 50s and early 60s. It was not unusual to hear somebody say, oh yeah, I'm running the same thing, a 20A 600L and a 75A4. It was like, you know, the blue blazer and the gray pants, you know, kind of thing. Everybody had them. But I went directly to the KWM2 and the linear and the tower and the tribander 10 years later. So I missed the opportunity to get in there on the ground floor as a CE owner. However, having said that, in 1985, I bought a 20A because this whole nostalgia thing was just getting started. And I took it apart, tuned it up, and I said, wow, I have really missed something here. So ever since then, I've been a CE owner and collector and really appreciate this stuff immensely, as a matter of fact. And over the past few years, I've gotten to know Nick and Bob and a whole lot of other people that have been involved. So when Nick put this thing together last year, it was a golden opportunity to go and meet one of my heroes, certainly, Wes Schum. And the more you get to know Wes, the more you understand what a genius the guy is. He took an approach that was controversial because the first real exciters that came out, well, the first home-built exciters were filter types, and Wes took something and said, it's got to be simple, it's got to be cost-effective, and it's got to be something everybody can buy. So he used the phasing system that was originally developed by Ralph Hartley and put it to good use, and away we went. You heard the story of it a couple of weeks ago when I was on, and it just fascinates me that he had such immense foresight to be able to do that and make it work.
Wow, isn't that something? Now, tell me about how we ended up with lower sideband on 75 and 40 and 160 and upper sideband on 20 and higher. I think that goes back to the filter arrangement for upper or lower sideband.
Well, it was what they used in the 20A and in a couple of other simple exciters that came out at that point in time was a 9 meg exciter against beating up against it was a basically it was a 9 meg transmitter, if you really want to call it that. But the local oscillator source was a BC455 VFO or a 5 meg source of some sort, and it was a lower sideband generator, and it could be easily flipped from lower to upper. So you cranked in 5 megs and took the 5 plus 9, and you got 20 meters out. You took the 9 minus 5, and you got 75 meters. So it was really a very simple rig to build.
Wow, isn't that something? Well, George, that really gives us a good insight. Let me quickly go back to Nick for a couple of words to wrap it up, and then, George, we'll turn over to you, and then we'll go to Newsline. So don't go away, George. Nick, any final words before we turn it back over to George? Nick, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I do want to make a couple of comments about why there's such a cult following on these Central Electronics radios. And it was because of, really, George touched on it. It was the genius of Wes and Joe Batchelor. Joe was Wes's chief engineer and friend and business associate for a little over 12 years. And they developed technology that was cutting edge and new. For example, this is the audio filter that's in the 100V. And, oh, by the way, the 100V took these two guys, well, it took them 2.5 years to get it developed as a prototype, but it took close to 4.5 years to actually get it in full production through Zenith. This is an active filter, and it was designed by Joe in about the 1956, late 1956 time frame. And this found its way into the Central Electronics 100V. Undoubtedly, it was the first use of an active filter in an amateur radio transmitter, or maybe any transmitter. But it has some spectacular characteristics.
That is just terrific. Well, Nick, thank you so much. Go ahead and quickly describe that, and then we've got to jump back to George and then end the Newsline. Go right back, Nick, for a quickie sign-off.
The phase shift network, which is the piece de resistance. It is been netted to maintain a phase shift within 0.2 of a degree. And trying to do that back in the 50s using hand-selected components like this, you couldn't possibly build these again.
Wow,
today.
That is terrific. Well, Nick, thanks for bringing those live products, and thanks to you for the great memories of the CE gear. George, a couple seconds, and then we're going to go over to Don Wilbanks. George?
Yeah, just a quick note. Nick and his buddy Bob Sullivan, W0YVA, have a great website that really should be mentioned here. The URL is ce-multiphase.com, and there's a wealth of information that Nick's put on there. A lot of brochures, photos, memorabilia from Wes, original manuscripts in some cases. Fantastic, just fantastic. And for people that have not heard of it, there's also a reflector, a CE email reflector that is most likely referenced on the website. And Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a link to it on the website. And there's a lot of good, a lot of good chit chat that takes place there. So, and Nick deserves a lot of credit for really preserving this legacy of Wes. Just a great job, Nick. Pleasure to be associated.
Well, thank you so much, George. And Nick, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we're running short of time, but let's jump over to Don Wilbanks with Newsline.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 1853, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, February 20th, 2013. Amateur radio operators in the Northeast were kept busy as a gigantic midwinter storm named Nemo buried the Northeast in snow Saturday, February 9th. The storm left behind a geographic region digging out of heavy white drifts and reeling from gale force winds. And Ham Radio severe weather spotters were on the job.
National weather is on. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rob. Snow total final for Sudbury, 25, 3 measurements, and they all equal 25 inches. Over.
Okay, received. Thanks for that. WX1BOX.
Hey, Whiskey Alpha 1 radio out.
That was the sound of the Taunton Sky One Amateur Radio Club's emergency activation network in Massachusetts as the network passed along snow levels to the National Weather Service while the megastorm continued on its northward trek. During the storm, WX1VOX also tweeted flooding information down the coast and reported that Martha's Vineyard had suffered some storm-related damage. Meantime, hams involved in Skywarn and other severe weather spotting services did their best to keep the National Weather Service, and through it, the public informed on the very latest information regarding this bitterly cold nor'easter as it played havoc with all those in its path.
Bill Pasternak, WA6ITF reporting. According to news reports, hundreds of thousands of people were without power as wind gusts of up to 80 miles per hour cut power and toppled trees. More than 400,000 customers were reported without power in Massachusetts and at least another 180,000 in Rhode Island. Also lost in some areas, both wireline and cellular telephone service. For some, it was several days before utilities were restored. Then the storm moved north into Canada. Stephen Kenford, N8WB.
On Friday morning, the call was made to activate Canwarn in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island on Saturday, February 9th, beginning at 8 a.m. Atlantic Time. Saturday morning, Net Control began operation by linking up 13 repeaters throughout Nova Scotia through the MAVCOM system, IRLP, Echolink, and HF operations on 80 meters. Canwarn spotters were asked to record snowfall amounts each hour, visibility, wind speed, direction, and storm surge. Notes would also be kept for any changeover from snow to freezing rain, ice pellets, rain, flooding, and any other damage reports. Starting at 11 a.m., damage reports started coming in of trees down, roofs being blown off, flooding in coastal areas, and roads being breached. Power outages were reported all over the province. Over the next 12 hours, Net Control recorded close to 200 messages.
The BBC says that the world's first smartphone sat project called Strand 1 will be ready to launch at the end of February. Skeeter Nash, N5ASH.
The Strand 1 CubeSat will carry a Google Nexus 1 Android smartphone into space to demonstrate the feasibility of using a cheap smartphone's electronics to control a spacecraft. Also included will be a software-based speech synthesizer to commemorate the UOSat family of amateur radio satellites that were launched in the 1980s. There will also be an amateur radio AX25 packet radio downlink on 437.575 megahertz.
The Strand 1 satellite was built in Guildford in the United Kingdom by volunteers from the Surrey Space Center and Surrey Satellite Technology Limited in their spare time. The launch is planned for February 25th. The famed Peter Dahl line of transformers used in many ham radio power amplifiers is going away. According to an announcement on the Harbach Electronics website, the company says that producing these transformers in these hard economic times is simply no longer cost-effective. According to Jeff Weinberg, W8CQ of Harbach, he's in negotiations with other entities for someone else to take over the manufacture of Peter Dahl transformers and other components in that product line, but as of airtime, nothing's been decided. Harbach discontinued the Peter Dahl product line February 14th. And finally this week, word that a ham familiar to Ham Nation viewers, Chip Margelli, K7JA, has joined Innov Antennas. At Innov, Margelli will manage sales and marketing activities in the Americas and will also contribute to the company's global strategic planning. While not at work, K7JA is a champion contester, DXer, and has been a DXpeditioner for over 5 decades. He was also the 2008 inductee into the CQ Amateur Radio Hall of Fame and famously featured on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno a few years ago in a segment pitting Morse code against SMS texting to see which was faster. On the professional side, Margelli has over 35 years' experience in the amateur radio industry with stints at Yaesu, Heil Sound, and CQ Communications. And that's all from Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news, brought to you each and every week for 35 years and counting at www.arnewsline.org. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5W73. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation.
Wow, great job, Don. Love those graphics. Thanks to Bill Pasternak for coming up with Newsline. And again, thanks to Nick, K5 Echo Foxtrot, George, W1 LSB for lower sideband. And hey, Ham Nation viewers, if you enjoyed these two great guests bringing some history, let us know on the chat room line, and we'll bring them back. Bob will make sure to get them on back. Well, let's make sure and bring in some smoke with George and Smoke and Solder. George, how you doing down there today?
Hey, Gordo, doing pretty good tonight. You know, I wonder, Bob was talking before the show about expecting an inch of ice in Springfield, and I wonder if he's got ice in his dish out there. You know, I spent a lot of time sweeping snow and ice out of dishes before, and I guess that could be a possibility.
Yeah, probably so, and we're going to have to buy him. Didn't I read about dish warmers that automatically warm up the outside rim of the dish?
I think he got it warm. Hi, Bob. Oh, no
Hi, guys.
audio.
Oh, there's no ice here yet. I don't understand what's going on because it's real slow, and that's not the norm here. But thanks for picking it up, Gordo. But we don't want to subject everybody to this horrible picture. But I'm able to. I got it on my iPad, so what can I tell you? So thanks a lot for making it all happen. So I guess it's going to be smoke and solder time now, right, George?
Yeah, and Bob, you can tell by my bench here, I've been working on something, and it hadn't worked out. I've had a little snag there over the weekend, and my buddy Wayne, you may remember Wayne came over and did the weather forecast for us that time on the green screen. Well, he just happened to show up needing to test out something he had just built. So I think we've got what's a nice segment here on how to use a mobile antenna and a portable setup. Hey, Wayne, what are you doing?
I need to borrow your antenna analyzer.
Oh, you're working on your mobile antenna?
Nope, something different. Well, what I have here is a very crudely made by me version of the Outbacker Outpost to use a mobile vertical antenna on the ground.
Let's take it over here and set it up.
All right.
So this is it, huh?
Yep. This is it. Give me a hand.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about how it's made.
What I've got is some 1/8 inch aluminum that I bought from Home Depot. And this is 2-inch flat stock. And this right here is 3/4 inch angle. A friend of mine, Mike Osborne, can't remember his call right now, but a few years ago he actually made one of these and just copied it from a picture from the Outbacker website and told me that it worked really well and that you didn't even have to have radios for it to work. So I thought I'd give it a shot and see what I come up with. I've got 4-foot long legs, both here and here. I've got brass hinges, and I've got some 1/2-inch nylon spacers.
You got those at Home Depot?
I got those. I got everything at Home Depot except for the top piece, my triangle piece, because I couldn't find any flat stock wide enough to make that triangle. But my friend Angie, she cut those out in her dad's machine shop and brought them to me, so that worked pretty well.
So these are just flat aluminum pieces here, and then you've got 2 angles here to make the legs of it.
Right, and it's not very well geometrically aligned, but it's close enough. I think hopefully it's going to work. We'll have to check it out and see.
And so this is your threaded nut here for your antenna to screw in.
Correct.
And you got a, what's that, a PL259?
Yeah, this is just a standard rear view mirror mount for a trucker or something like that. And just cut the 1/2-inch hole in the middle and get your little plastic washer to seat so everything lines up right.
And you've got it put together here with rivets on the hinges.
I've got rivets on the hinges, and I put 1-inch bolts going through here all the way down on all 3 legs. And I got 1-inch bolts on the bottom to hold this to the hinge down at the bottom as well.
Well, set it up for us. Let's see what it looks like. And you just throw those out on the ground, huh?
Just throw them out on the ground.
And you don't need a ground system. That is your ground system, huh?
Yep. Mike told me it was supposed to work, so I guess we're going to find out. This must be put on earth. It can't be on concrete or asphalt. It has to be put on grass or dirt or maybe sand. I'm not sure, but it's got to be put on earth, not on concrete or with anything with rebar or anything metal underneath it. I don't know why, but that's what I was told.
I wonder if it would work like on a concrete roof. Well, I guess better than nothing, but probably not as good on the ground.
May not be. I don't know. I just want to see if it works to begin with.
Does the height of it or the angle of these legs make much difference?
I don't believe it does, but...
You hadn't tried?
I haven't tried, so... But I would think that pretty much a 45 would probably be your ideal, stability-wise anyway. So, we'll see.
Now, so it's a Outbacker Outpost copy, but this is not an Outbacker you've got in your hand there, I don't believe.
No, this is actually my very first HF mobile antenna, which was a bug catcher that I never could get to work on anything but 10 meters. And it's been sitting up collecting dust and rusting, and I recently took it apart and tried to clean it up. Took a wire brush and brushed it off and oiled it and tried to check, make sure all the connections were working. So if I use this, this would be what I would use it with.
So there's a good chance that this mount would work with most any mobile antenna, not just an outbacker.
I have been told that it will work with any mobile antenna. All right, go get your analyzer.
So what do you got, Wayne?
Well, after messing with this for a little bit and doing a little tuning on the antenna, it looks like I've got a 1.0 SWR at 3836.
Wow, 1.0, that's excellent then.
Yeah, that's a little bit lower than what I was wanting for the operating frequency, but
yeah, you can readjust the antenna.
I can readjust a little bit, but it's still only like a 1.6 up where I want it to run anyway, so I don't think it's too terribly bad.
Yeah. So we're going to call this a success.
I would say so, but this is just an analyzer, so I guess we ought to try it on a radio and see if it works on a radio. But
okay, so you got out your portable rig there.
Yeah, I've got my Yaesu 897 and a little battery I bought in Huntsville.
Yeah.
And of course, radio seems to be working at the moment. So I guess we're gonna back this thing down here to about 20 watts just to be on the safe side to start off here. Got it set for SWR display, so we'll watch the bottom bar here and see what it does when I key up and if it gives us any SWR. And it's showing nothing. I might actually be able to work HF from the house now. Huh.
Well, we'll have to take this out on field day next year.
Yeah, might be a good idea. That's kind of what I was hoping for, was something I could use for emergencies or camping, which I enjoy doing as well. It's a lot easier than throwing a long wire up in a tree. Probably right around $120 for all the aluminum, which that was expensive, but
well, if you bought one assembled, what would it cost?
I know they're over $200.
Okay, cool. Thanks for showing us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the use of the analyzer.
That was a nice project, and he didn't spend long at all out there tuning up the antenna, and it looked like he got excellent results out of it. So I may have to build one of those myself. $120 does seem a bit pricey for the aluminum. I think he bought it at Home Depot, so you could probably find that cheaper if you could find a metal supplier somewhere. Well, what do you think about that, Bob? Nice project?
Well, of course, that's really cool, and that antenna works really good. It doesn't get the accolades I think that it really deserves, because that thing sure performs. Gordo can tell you a lot about that, because I think he's got several of them hanging around. Don't you have one of them on your air machine, Gordo?
We do. I would suggest, though, that the load be put on top of about a 2 or 3 foot 3H24 rod, though, to get that center load rather than base load. And the reason he saw no SWR was because he wasn't yet modulating. So you won't see SWR on sideband until you go 4. Back to you, Bob and George.
Yeah, I thought about that, Gordo. I thought about that, Gordo, but he actually, it was on CW when he did it, so he wouldn't need to modulate. It should have been just a continuous carrier there. So anyway, we got stuff to give away, so let's do it. I had a question last week from the General Radio amateur exam, and it was, if you have 3 equal value resistors in parallel and they produce 50 ohms of resistance, and the same 3 resistors in series produce 450 ohms, what is the value of each? And we had a winner, and that was Stephen, AI0W, and he said, interesting question. If you can remember the formulas, it can be answered in your head. And he had the right answer. He said it's 150 ohms. And that's correct. Do the math. Very simple example there using resistors in series or in parallels. And he's going to win a copy of Jerry Buston's great book, Constructing HF Wire Antennas. And for next week, we've got another special prize here, and this comes from Frank and our buddies over at cheapham.com. This is another one of those on-the-air lights. It's, I believe this one has LEDs in it, so nice little on-the-air light there. If you'd like to win that, well, here's a simple question. Wayne used my antenna analyzer to measure the VSWR on his antenna there. What other popular instrument could you have used to measure the SWR with? And if you know the answer to that, and you should, send me an email to hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could be the winner of this on-the-air light, courtesy of cheapham.com. And you know, ICOM has a contest going on continuously. After each episode of Ham Nation, you can go to ICOM America/Ham Nation and register to win the weekly swag giveaway. Each week they go through and, you know, see who all entered and do a drawing, and somebody will win some free swag. But not only that, you're also going to be entered in the contest to win a monthly radio giveaway. So that means you can register. I believe this month you've got 4 episodes of Ham Nation, so you can register after each one to be eligible to win that radio. So the more you register, the more likely you are to win it. And what's it going to be this month? Well, it's going to be that great ID31A, you know, the little compact handheld D-Star UHF radio. It has GPS in it as well, and it's got that automatic repeater list-up function that's so great when you travel. Plus, it's got a micro SD card in it so that you can save settings and record QSOs and a number of things. So go register. That's ICOMAmerica.com/hamnation, and you could be the winner. And there's more the official details on the rules at the website. Bob?
All right, good stuff. Thanks to Frank also. He does such great things for Ham Nation and for all of amateur radio, so look up Cheap Ham. They're great. Gordo, I think you have some nice words about one of our favorite transceivers.
I do. And you see it right here. You see it every week. That's the ICOM 9100. Now, this is a radio that has everything in one radio, including HF, VHF, UHF. It's a versatile rig with expansion capabilities plus, including D-Star, including, hey George, GPS that is part of this package as well. Now, the 9100 is what we took to Quartz Fest, and it covers all of the ham bands on HF in any mode and offers a wide variety of operating styles, including 6 meters, on VHF 2 meters, and on UHF the 440 band multi-mode. And we're not talking about a little power out. We're talking about 100 watts out on 2 meters and 75 watts out on 440. The ICOM 9100 is what we use for satellite operation. Now, as you know, SO50 is about the last of the FM birds, of which this transceiver has a built-in CTCSS encode decode to awaken the bird at 74 hertz and then go ahead and work the bird at 67. The ICOM 9100 can also work the satellites in the linear mode with automatic linear tracking synchronization. So when you tune for Doppler shift, you may go one way on one band and the other way on the other band, so you're always within the normal tuning range of the orbiting satellites. Independent receivers on HF, and the first 3 IF filters are there to provide also roofing filters and HF and 6 meters, and all of the filters are configurable as well. So you can support many digital processing features with the DSP in AGC, the IF filter, twin passband tuning, and more. Dual conversion, of course, and with image rejection mixer. This is important because at the get-together at Quartz Fest, we had so many other stations on so many other bands within 500 feet that only the 9100 on the hex beam was able to reliably hear band by band and get rid of all the other QRM that was coming in from other bands all around us. The 9100 has a USB port for rig control and audio. You can control it via a computer, optional programming and remote control software, automatic tuner built in, AGC loop management, and this was the radio that had all the attention at Quartz Fest because we tried it along with the ICOM 7200. We ran the voltage all the way down to about 10.5 volts, and both units stayed on the air without any distortion. By the way, those filters, digital IF filter. As Ray says, you can build your own filter network any way you want to digitally. And then you can memorize those 3 filter settings in 3 memory stages. 16-step noise reduction. Boy, that helped out at Quartz Fest when we had all those generators rolling around. So to learn more about the ICOM 9100 or the other great ICOM products that we regularly use here at the Shack, go to icomamerica.com/hamnation, and then you'll learn about the IC 9100. And as George says, you can also enter ICOM's weekly drawing for ICOM swag, such as T-shirts and hats, and everyone who registers will automatically be entered in a monthly grand prize drawing for a free ICOM radio. Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation for the official rules and check out all ICOM's previous drawing winners. Sign up. Good luck. And I'm going to be playing around with my IC 9100, where on 40 meters I can push one button and go from sideband to CW to RTTY, and it has an RTTY decoder. What a rig. You'll hear it on the air tonight as soon as the net is over 7268 or thereabouts. Bob, back to you.
Okie dokie. Well, that's a great place to start, is 7268, because that's where Mike will be, and along with Al from the East Coast, and I think there's I think Bill's probably going to check in also from Texas. So you want to look very, very hard and see if you can find Dale and all of them on 7268 for the net afterwards. So let's see what's going on in the chat room from Cheryl up north. Cheryl, it's probably colder here than it is up there. How you doing?
Hi, Bob. Hi, everybody. This is Cheryl Lassie, K9BIK here with your tidbits and nuggets from the chat room. You know, we don't really have the weather you have, Bob, and I hope that you get more than I do, and that's all that I can say about that. Hope they were concerned about you were cranking down a tower. Is that a motorized tower that you have, or is that something you hand crank down? That was one of the questions they had for you.
Well, right. We just put it up, a few months ago, and I don't have the motorized stuff on it. It's a crank down. It's easy to do. It's a 55-foot U.S. tower, but motors to come when spring gets here. But cranks down real easy, not a problem.
Oh, good. Well, great. That's always nice to have a plan, and warm weather gets the projects completed. After all, you can't always do everything when it's frigid out there. So, well, I just wanted to say that we had a bunch of activity in there, and it looks like we have a comment here from Quartz Fest Steve. He says to thank Gordo, Julian, and the crew for the Super Ham Nation Quartz Fest 2013 video for him and Angel. So he wanted to give you a big thanks there, Gordo, and everybody, Julian. Great job. So moving on, I just wanted to say that KD0COR Zach has a question for Bob. How many watts should I drive my Central Electronics 600L with and be efficient? Is that a familiar
it
item?
better not be more than 20. It's the amplifier is made to use with the 10As and the 20Bs, and it takes very little to get a good 500 watts out of the 600L. It's an amazing amplifier.
Excellent, excellent. I also had N3VE. He wanted to say that is everybody going to check in the D-Star net, and can Gordo let everyone know that Reflector 14C as in Charlie is the place to go. So I wanted to get that out there for the D-Star net anyway. And I don't know if Don is still on any of the Skype feeds, but if you are, then please answer this. If you're not, go ahead and put it in the chat room, Don. They wanted to know, NT5SM Scott puts out a question to you. Do you use a teleprompter when you read the news? I thought you might want to answer it. I think it's pretty much a monitor, but if you're online, go ahead and answer it. Otherwise, put that answer in the chat room for everybody. Thanks. And Bob, we had a comment from Dale out there, KL2BO. He says, "What's the matter?" He says, "No purple flannel for you?" He was looking for a purple flannel, Bob. So if you don't have that, that's on the list. So sorry.
On the list.
There was, a question about the PR-22 that Zach also picked up, and you had a nice answer in the chat room. I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about the PR-22 Heil sound microphone because we don't ever get a chance to really discuss that. And what do you like using it for, Bob? Can you kind of go over that a little bit for us?
Well, it works for just about anything. It's one of the pro mics, but it has a lot of mid-range articulation. Paul Rogers and a lot of the rockers, including Justin Bieber, uses it to cut through the band on stage. It really is great, and that works fabulous on AM because it puts your vocal right in the middle. Your voice is out there through all the noise and stuff, and it works really good. Kind of like the old D104, but it's got a lot more bandwidth.
Nice. Excellent. Thanks for the answer. And one other thing that KJ6ZCR, Greg, he was saying that a lot of times you say 75 meters is the same as 80 meters, and I just wanted to go over that and field that question myself here. It looks like, 80 meters starts at the 4 megahertz level, and it's common in the amateur radio community to call it 80 meters. However, the true fact is that 75 meters would be more accurate since we are below 4 megahertz. For an example, the after show QSO that I like to go on and talk to the folks, you guys out there, is 3.850 megahertz, which it's really 75 meters. However, the manufacturers still call it 80 meters since it covers from 3 megahertz to 4 megahertz, basically. So be aware that 80 meters starts at 4 megahertz. And it's easier just to round it off, and they just rounded it off, and that's all there is to that. Let's see. There's a couple others in here. Oh, George,
hey,
we
Cheryl.
have a question. Yes. Go ahead.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yes.
Let's let Gordo, the teacher, tell us 80 meters is not 4 megs. That's 75 meters. Explain that, Gordo.
Yeah, go ahead, Gordo.
There you go. 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz, and it'll work out. Normally when we say 75 and 80, we're either talking about the CW portion of the band for 80 or 75 for voice. Is that right? Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
That's right.
Well, thanks for straightening us out on that. I stand corrected there. Anyhow, George, we have a question for you from Claudius, KB1ZBW. He says, where can we find the plans for that antenna setup? He really wanted to know how to get a hold of that. So do you have information for him?
Well, the only way I know to find the plans are to download this episode and go watch it, because Wayne didn't follow any plans. That was basically a copy of the Outback or Outpost that a friend of his had built, and he just looked at it. He made the legs 4 feet long, and from there, I guess you just kind of make it up. The pieces that folded down on the ground were 4 feet as well. So it shouldn't be that difficult to come up with some plans of your own on that, but I don't know of any on the internet.
All right. Thanks, George. Thank you very much. And one other thing is AD9Z or Z, Dave wanted to know if Gordon West will be at the AES Superfest in Milwaukee, and that's a big affirmative. Yeah, he'll be there. Absolutely. And that's going to be on April 5th and the 6th this year. That's put together by Ray K9KHW there at Milwaukee. And, it's a great time for exploring ham radio there. I kind of invite you guys to go there. They have events and forums happening in Milwaukee. There's 2 days really there, starting on Friday, and then Saturday is the big time. And Bob, we're we're really hoping that especially me, I'd love to have you be there. I know you have a lot of other things going on, but still keep us in mind. If you could squeeze us in, we'd love to have you. And you have other previous engagements, but are you going to think about coming to AES this year?
I think about it, but there's a thing called a tour. It's Joe Walsh with Bob Seger, and so that's where I'm going to be.
Okay, well, that sounds like a really good time too, and wish you have a great journey and experience when you're doing that. But you will be missed. I just thought I'd tell you that. So, and one last thing, because I don't want to run overtime here, and I know we want to really stick to this. I want to thank everybody for your questions and joining us tonight in the chat room, and for the podcast listeners and everything. But I guess NT9E Dave says, Don, he's talking to Mr. Wilbanks. Once you get a fish finder, you never look back. And that's all I have to say for tonight. Have a great evening, and thanks for joining us on Ham Nation, guys. Talk to you next time.
Oh, boy, that's great.
Oh, well, hey, Gordle, the new Kinwa's got lots of fish finders, right?
It probably does with that color screen.
Okay, well, we're all off to 40 meters and 75 meters and dewdrops and the whole bit. So we will see you then. I'm sorry for my poor signal tonight. I don't know what's going on here, but I think I have an answer, and that is the gateway for Exceed is in Denver, and they are having a lot of ice and stuff right now. So things are clear here right now, but the gateway's not, so whatever. We'll see you on the air, everybody. Thanks very much to everyone, and especially Nick and to George, for giving us a little more history about good old Wes Schum. We need to hear from you guys and girls. You'd like to hear more, let us know, as we'll bring them back. We could talk here for hours about that. Be sure and go back and watch the other episode a few weeks ago that George did. We actually did a demonstration that's really good. So 73, everybody. And Gordon, Cheryl, George, Don, everybody, thanks so much for being there. We'll see all of you next week. Be sure and watch the replays. Tell all your friends. In about 48 hours, you'll be able to see this. But just put Ham Nation into Google. That's all you have to do. And you'll see all of the shows. And we'll talk again next week right here on Ham Nation. Thanks to Leo Laporte for the bandwidth. And thanks to Brian. And thanks to Carson. Bye-bye for now.